Okay, yeah, I'm seeing it here with the starting soon. Good deal.
That logo looks nice in the corner.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, you did a great job with that logo. That looks
Thank
Yeah,
you.
awesome.
love your brand. I'm working through a rebrand right now, and I have a glitch art logo and pairs
Mm.
well with your design.
Yeah, we've got the guy that helped us design these did a really great job. This one and our abstract logo both, like, I'm blown away with how well they turned out.
Oh, they are fantastic.
Okay, well, you can go ahead and bring us live, Francis.
All right. We're live.
All right. Happy Sunday, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. We've still got some people filtering in, it looks like, but feel free to ask us any questions you might have on the topic. Tonight, we're going to primarily focus on blockchain technology and why we feel like it's important for it to be integrated into our platform as we look into the future of this space. And with us tonight, we're really excited to have Warner Moore here. He's an esteemed friend of ours who's one of our well, at least he's been with Rev One as long as I've known of Rev One, so he's a fixture there, as well as the founder of Game of Force, as well as the founder of the Tech Community Coalition. So I guess first we could pass it off to you, so maybe you could do a little introduction and let everybody know who you are.
Absolutely, Colin. Thanks so much for having me today. A pleasure to hang out with you and Francis. What else would we do on a Sunday, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, well, with Rev One, I'm in their advisory network, so I have the opportunity to work with a lot of concept and early stage startups. It's one of my ways to give back to the ecosystem, which is one of the hats I wear. But I'd say I focus a good part of my time between my for-profit business, Gamma Force, and what we do at Gamma Force is we help companies with technology and cybersecurity strategy through fractional executive services and expert strike teams. So what that means is we build security programs for companies. So literally the security capabilities that companies have and the many things that are related to cybersecurity as part of that. And then my nonprofit, Tech Community Coalition, we're focused in Columbus and the surrounding areas, but we'll eventually get broader. And what we do is we help the tech and startup communities through charity and education. And we do a lot to support the 60 plus tech community groups that were active before the pandemic. Now we're going through a bit of a transition, but coming back strong. And that happens through things like fiscal sponsorship, where we help the leaders operate their organizations, as well as doing things to bring the larger community together. And we do an annual tech community holiday party in partnership with a lot of the different groups in town. So that's a kind of the nickel version of my background, but maybe a little bit more about me personally. I grew my career in technology in the early days of the internet and helped build a lot of different tech companies, really startups and growth companies across industries, insurtech, fintech, payment, healthcare IT, through building several companies that folks might know of in Columbus, to Checkout, Cover My Meds, and Both Penguin. So did a lot in that space through roles in technology as well as in security. So my background gets pretty nerdy when it comes to things like blockchain and other emerging technologies. And it's definitely related to the work I do in the entrepreneurial ecosystem, as well as in some cases, the more product-centric chief information security officer hats that I might wear sometimes.
Yeah. I did mean to mention that you were part of Cover My Meds. I remember reading that as well. That's really interesting too. So, and one thing I think worth noting here is that we're all from Ohio, right? So, like, that's really interesting too, because
Well, Alyssa's
Alyssa is
from
not technically in
Texas.
Ohio, but she's from Ohio.
She is
Yeah, I'm from Ohio. I'm from
She's from Ohio.
Cincinnati.
Yep.
Yeah.
She
So
lives
we
in
are
Texas,
all-
though.
Yeah, I moved.
So shout out to Ohio. You know, we've got a lot of up and coming tech companies here. This is where you should be for tech.
It's true. One of the strongest tech markets in the country. Maybe under-recognized, but folks are starting to figure it out now.
Yeah, yeah. And the governor's address that just happened a few months ago when they were talking about Intel coming in, and I didn't know a lot of the stuff that they brought up about how forward-thinking Ohio is just in the tech space, and that was really cool to hear. But
Yeah, that Intel manufacturing plant's a big deal for not only the state, but
Yeah.
the country, bringing more manufacturing domestically for supporting our critical infrastructure. And that's a big part of our defense strategy because we do have security weaknesses in different
Yeah.
parts of our infrastructure, and that will help with that.
Right, yeah. So one thing I wanted to say before we really start diving into the conversation, we're not going to get into speculating on different cryptocurrencies and what, you know, what blockchain is better or any of that. We just wanted to really help our customers and our fans understand what is blockchain. For those that don't really know, what is blockchain? Why is it important? And what are the use cases moving into the future? So maybe something we could hit on here is what we talked about before we went on camera, Warner, about I really found it interesting how the other startup you're working with was solving some of these international financial issues using blockchain, and how that can be used as a way to kind of level the playing field for the unbanked in other countries.
Yeah, it's so true. It's easy for us, or at least me, living here in the United States, to get spoiled with the modern financial infrastructure we have. And there are many countries that don't have that luxury for many reasons. And I'm not going to go on a political science dialogue here, but for countries like Africa, a lot of African countries just don't have banks. Or those that do have banks, those who have bank accounts are the privileged few, the wealthy. It's just not a thing that the average person has. So there are financial problems in the sense of a startup problem, where technologies like blockchain can really make a dramatic difference in folks' day-to-day lives. So I'm advising a startup called Amano, and Amano is working to democratize payments in Africa. And they're doing that using blockchain, where the way people transact money there is either through a telecommunications company, where you put money on your SIM, and the way to do that is to give cash to an agent. So this whole transaction, the only way in some countries, not all, there's many countries in Africa, but the main way they transact is via agents or just cash. So they'll get money on their SIM cards. And there's a complete lack of transparency there. So unlike our banks and a lot of our financial infrastructure, where we have all these financial controls enforced, you don't know what this company's doing once they have the money. And there are many things that could happen where there's just no transparency. And with blockchain, every step of the transaction in the ledger is tracked, which is the fundamental, I'd say, feature in the technology itself.
Yeah.
So applying blockchain to solve problems like that is world changing. Whereas here, well, we do things a little differently, so we might not see the opportunities that exist in some other markets.
Right, yeah. Like you said, the transparency of blockchain is the main driving force behind it. I've heard people say that there's no trust needed. You know, you don't have to trust the bank that you're going to have this transaction, because everything that you need to know about the transaction is right there in the blockchain.
It's
Um,
true.
Yeah, yeah,
It's done via strong encryption too. And this is the part that would get boring really fast, so I'm not going to go into detail. But there are certain things when it comes to cryptography and how it's applied that, well, I'm a security person, right? So
yeah,
I don't trust hardly anything. When it comes to the application of strong encryption done well, I trust that. Signal, an open source messaging platform, I trust unequivocally that my messages in transit are secure because it's using strong encryption. And the corollary here is blockchain is using strong encryption, and there's a ledger of that transaction every step of the way, and it's immutable. Well, in most blockchains, and there are many out there, but let's just say the fundamental blockchain principle. So when that transaction happens, you can't go back and change the history.
right.
That's a fundamental feature in the tech.
Yeah, and there was a case not too long ago where there were some agents who were siphoning off Bitcoin out from a raid that happened, and the federal judge was able to go back and find out which agents had taken the money, where it went, just by looking at the transaction history on the blockchain. So, for anyone that says it's a way for criminals to get away with crimes, it's exactly the opposite. You can take that cryptocurrency and find out from point A to point B where it went and how it got there. So it's fascinating to me.
Yeah, there's a specialization that's started to emerge where blockchain forensics, where folks comb through these histories and the kind of things that are found and are out there. Certainly not anonymous by default. There's a lot of nuance there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so as a security person, another topic that we hit on here is where do we see this technology being used for secure transfer of titles, for buying a home, for instance, and some of those things. Maybe you could shed some light on how you see the future of that space maybe evolving.
That's the part where I get quite passionate about quickly because, well, I'm a technologist. I do everything I can electronically, which means I'll sooner argue with someone over using a check than write one because I don't use checks. I don't
Right.
have checks. Well, there are certain things that are exceptionally difficult or impossible to do electronically. An example of that is a title transfer of a home, and we have, or even a vehicle, right? What do we do? Well, at least in Ohio, we go to BMV, we have to hand over papers and IDs, and it's a very manual process. There are folks and companies out there that are working on applying blockchain to these problems, such as the title transfer of a home. And I think those are parts of our market in the US where we're not fully electronic yet, and there are many obstacles to doing so in the incumbent industries. And blockchain has an opportunity to really disrupt or transform those industries depending on how the companies go about it. I'll be happy if I never have to sit in a room for 2 hours signing stacks of paper. It's ridiculous.
Jeez, yeah, it is. It is. I mean, and like you said, it's hundreds of pages you have to go through signing and signing. Yeah.
A big part of it's chain of custody and audit trails. And shoot, folks, we could make fraudulent records, but there's controls. Honestly, I trust blockchain applied in those situations more than I do a bunch of papers with signatures on them.
Yeah. Yeah, and the way I heard it explained was that this whole process of buying a home and signing all those papers is in a way to show that trust that you have to have in these institutions that you're signing the papers for. And with blockchain, you eliminate the need for that. There's no need for trust in those transactions at that point. So yeah, that's really interesting. One thing that our audience tends to get on us about is where do we see, or why do we need to have blockchain in our e-commerce platform? Why is that important moving forward? And that's something that I just kind of wanted to hit on here after hearing everything that we've been talking about. It's going to be a safer, more secure way for us to have these transactions happen on a global scale. It's going to make things a lot easier for us, for you, the end user. Sure, today there are some hurdles for that. There's transactional fees that are inhibitive sometimes, but we're working to get past that and find solutions that fit for our platform. But kind of based on everything we've talked about here today, it's just a better way, in my opinion, to have these transactions happen. But I'd be curious to know, we're talking about cryptocurrencies, we're talking about blockchain. There are instances where people are having their wallets stolen. There's instances where people have their money taken out of their accounts. From a security standpoint, what do you think is a safeguard for people who are concerned about their blockchain wallets? Do you know much about that space?
Yeah, well, that's pretty broad. I'll touch on your ecosystem real quick. With NFTs or non-fungible tokens, I think it's especially relevant for a virtual platform or a metaverse or a place where everything is intangible. If we think about art, right? What makes this photo or this painting that we have so important? And it's often an artist will only make one. Or maybe they make more, but usually they'll only decide to make one original of that kind. And, well, it's the physical world. We can guarantee that. Whereas in the intangible world, we can copy files as much as we want. Now, artists might make prints where they choose to make however many prints and they sign them, and those are still limited. But an original print from an artist can become very valuable. And the value we put in these artistic goods are based on our roles in society. We all agree they have value. Now, intangibly digital goods, that's traditionally super difficult. Now, we can make copies of things, but if you could guarantee that this avatar, this armor, this digital good only exists once, and there's only one original one, and we can, with the technology, and blockchain enables us to make that real with technology. If we can do that, we can apply the same rules we've agreed to in our society to our intangible world. And that's emerging and maybe controversial in some circles, but I think the tech there, it's real.
Yeah.
So if we apply it and agree to it, sharing the same standards we have in the world we live in every day physically, it can really be game changing.
Man, that's a good point. Yeah. Because we were just talking on our last meeting on Friday about making NFT apartments, right, for everybody to have in our space. So
I love that.
Yeah, that's cool. We're gonna
maybe some smart contracts to collect rent.
Yeah. We I think Alyssa's actually working on that as we speak. That's a little quick update we can give to people.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's in the process.
Yeah. So that's we're gonna have individualized apartments. There's gonna be only one made by Alyssa, so you're gonna have your own NFT apartment that you can show off within the space. So that's really cool. That's a good point, because you brought that up and I totally forgot to bring that up. So I appreciate that.
But I can talk about securing wallets if you'd like.
Yeah, no, I was curious because it's a concern for some people. It's, they feel like they're giving this money up. It's going into the ether, and they don't know what a cryptocurrency is to begin with, and they don't know where it's safe. And I think that it's from my perspective anyway. It's important to know the the um, the exchange that you're using. That's an important piece of it. And then keeping your uh, passcodes, your keys, on a separate device from the one that you use on a daily basis, because you don't want to get hacked and get that stolen. And I was just thinking, from someone who lives in that space, how you keep that kind of information confidential and things like that.
Well, one thing I'll point out, and it's not my website. I wish I built it. When I found it, it was so good. I just started referring people to it. And the domain is security checklist. But the top level domain, if you put a dot before the ST, that's the website. So security checklist, but the .st on the end.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And that is a ton of general security recommendations that are very important. There are things I talk about with people all the time. And they apply just as much here, because really, when it comes down to it, a wallet is nothing special relative to other assets we have, but we think about it maybe a little more sensitively in our computing world. So I'll just say, set that as the initial context. But with that said, we have a bunch of different kinds of wallets, right? We have non-custodial wallets, where it means you're storing the value locally in your computers or your devices. We have custodial wallets, where maybe it's stored on somebody else's server. And then we have hardware wallets. So there are many different kinds of wallets, and the security and risk profile differs between those types of wallets. And admittedly, there's been an offensive amount of fraud with some of the exchanges out there. But there are also very established ones, such as Coinbase, where you can be fairly confident that the people who run the company aren't going to steal your crypto.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't keep it secure. What I would do for anything I want to keep the most secure, I'd probably store it in a hardware wallet. And then the problem turns into physical security. Is my house safe, or do I live in a place where it's high risk? Do people know? And for the record, I don't. I don't own any cryptocurrency assets of any substantial value, so no hardware wallets here. But if you do have those, and you're talking about it publicly, and there's expectation that you're wealthy, well, that's a really good way to become a target fast, just from traditional crime. So if you think of your assets, and in this case, crypto assets, and how you protect them, I'd frame it first from that perspective. What kind of wallet? What threats exist for that wallet? And then use traditional security measures from there.
Yeah. Okay. So that was about all the talking points we had for tonight. Francis, Alyssa, do you have anything that came up in your, is there anything you can think of that you wanted to hit on?
No, I think that was a lot of information.
Hey, good to see you, Crafty. I see you out there. Thanks, guys. Yeah. Anybody that's out here that has anything they want to ask, just let us know.
If you guys have any questions, go ahead and ask them.
So, oh wait, was that on Twitter or? I have a notification here. Let's see.
Oh, we do have a question.
Oh, that's what the notification was, yeah. Okay, so on the NFT apartments, question for the NFT apartments.
Oh, hey.
This will be a separate metaverse space from the EGC space? Will it be? Yes. Okay, so the question is, will this virtual NFT apartment be separate from the metaverse space? The answer is no. It's all going to be within the abstract. So you're going to access the apartment from within the world. We don't have it built to show you yet, but you'll go into a virtual apartment building. You're going to access an elevator terminal of sorts, put in your apartment number, and then you'll load into your virtual apartment from there. And then you can share that code, that room code, with your friends, and they can come and see your apartment as well. It'll all live within our cloud space. So they would just have to put in the room code. It'll download that onto their virtual machine, and then they'll be able to access the space as well.
It'll probably be like a room code and some sort of password you give them, something like that, so it's a little bit more secure, so no one's like entering your room or something like that.
Yeah.
So.
And then, yeah. And within the apartment, you'll be able to showcase any of the NFT art like we talked about, or trophies from winning tournaments, or anything that you have that you've collected within the space. You'll be able to showcase that within the apartment there. So it'll be in the same space. Yes. Awesome.
Hi,
yeah,
Alex.
Warner, I don't know. We've talked about the space that we're creating and how we're using the cloud computers to run and render all of this gaming content and things like that. But essentially, we're to a point now where we've created this virtual kind of social hangout world where everyone's going to connect together, find friends to game with, and then go over and load into different games that we have commercially licensed and play. And we've got tournaments and competitions that we're working out. So you'll win, these tournaments and things. And so, yeah.
Should we also talk about what we're also thinking about doing? And have like little trophies you might win from the game?
Yes. I actually talked to our friends over at Coffin Rot, and we're gonna put together a little trophy, I think, that either they're gonna develop or we'll develop, and that'll be what you win for the Coffin Rot tournament that's coming up. So.
And you can showcase that in your apartment buildings too. So if you win on like the Deed of Deception, you can win like a little butler statue or figurine and stuff, or you can win a life version of the butler or something like that.
For your room.
For your room.
For your apartment.
For your digital room.
Yep, for your
digital room.
Yeah.
I want to keep some crypto punks in my metaverse apartment.
Yeah. It's crazy because we started out as a gaming platform primarily, and I would say we're equally as we have about as equal amount of crypto enthusiasts as we do gaming enthusiasts that are excited about the project now. So that's been really cool to see.
Someone asked what blockchain is planned to be used for Crater.
Well, it's going to be Evergrow. It's going to be Evergrow coin. Crater is built by Evergrow, so it's going to be their blockchain.
Yep.
Yep. Do you know if this question was already asked? Is the abstract going public as an IPO? Well, that is the plan at some point. Crypto Revo. I think I said that right. That is our plan. There's a lot of hoops to go through to get to that point. Warner, have you been a part of any company that's gone public?
Are you talking about IPO or ICO?
IPO, yeah.
Okay, IPO. Yeah, it's interesting. I for a long time thought we might have covered my meds, but at the time the market was less favorable to companies going public, and when a big company shows up with $1 billion check, it's kind of hard to say no to that.
Right. Yeah.
So we didn't end up going public, but I do know a little bit about it. It's certainly well, usually one of the main reasons to do it is for a liquidity event or to bring in investment into the company, and there are a lot of different ways to do that, right?
Yeah, yeah, and so again, our plan is to go IPO. There may be something that happens, like Warner mentioned there with Cover My Meds, where somebody comes in and wants to make sure that we stay a privately held company. But our intention is to go for the IPO at some point in the near future. But I'd like to caveat that with anyone who is invested currently in our WeFunder campaign, whether we go public or not, your investment is still sound, and you will obviously retain any value that you get with the expansion of our company and when we get reevaluated and things like that. So so you'll still, whether we go IPO, whether we don't, your investment will still be worth the investment, I guess is what I'm trying to say. That's something we currently have a WeFunder campaign. I don't know if you're familiar with the platform. It's a Regulation CF platform where we go out for pre-seed investment funds, essentially. And we're almost to our target. So we're within about 20 grand of our target.
That's congrats. That's really cool.
Thanks.
Can you drop the link in chat? I'd be curious to see it. Maybe others are interested as well.
We are going to keep it up until we hit that target, but we're not overselling. So as soon as we hit our target, we're bringing it down. We're not trying to get a bunch of money from everybody. We're just trying to cover our initial development cost. So again, thanks everyone who's invested so far. It's been amazing.
Yeah, I can't share it in Twitch because I'm not logged in. Otherwise, I'd share it there too.
Oh shoot, yeah, I can share it here too. What am I doing?
Yeah, it's interesting how the SEC rules were changed to enable non-accredited investors to invest in private companies. It's produced some interesting opportunities since then.
Yeah, that's a recent development, and like you said, it's given people the opportunity to get in on something that typically has only been available to VCs and early stage investors, and open the door for people to really take advantage of those early opportunities.
Yeah, the SEC has this term called accredited investor.
Yeah.
And it basically just means you have to be really wealthy or a professional with a bunch of investing certifications like Series 7. Otherwise, you can't invest privately. Right,
yeah. I think the threshold was like 250,000. You have to be worth, or some number like that.
Million.
Yeah. Oh, is it? Yeah. Okay. Well. So yeah, then with WeFunder, you can skirt that regulation requirement and get in on these early stage companies, which is really cool. But yeah, we've had a really great reception on WeFunder. We couldn't be more thrilled with the response that we've gotten. It's just been so cool to see our fans and our audience really rally behind our project.
Oh, that's a great question. Do you suggest a VPN when dealing with crypto?
I'll just say simply no. Intrinsically, there's no real reason for that by default.
VPNs are typically used to get around. Well, I know that you can use them in other countries to watch like Hulu from another country or something. Like I don't know a whole lot about VPNs or their use cases, but
it's to help like secure your computer from like hackers and stuff as well.
Yeah, well, there's In certain countries like China, they actively censor the internet, the Great Firewall of China. So that's why in certain countries, it's a real thing, believe it or not.
Yeah.
It's existed since the 90s.
Yeah.
And that's why somebody might use a VPN there. Here, a lot of VPN providers claim they don't log traffic. So it gives you an expectation of privacy with the data transfers. But there's no real security per se. So you get some privacy by using VPNs relative to the traffic you're sending, but gets pretty technical pretty fast with stuff like that. I'm keeping myself from getting nerdy.
No, I've speaking of China, I've heard that they have like the biggest internet police force in the world. They have this massive force of police officers that try to make sure information isn't getting out that they don't want to get out and stuff. It's pretty crazy.
I do like free speech. I think that's something we've grown to appreciate here.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
For sure.
So 7 Cheese Pizza asks what our thoughts on pineapple pizza are. I am a proponent of pineapple pizza. I just want to put that out there.
I like it.
I love
pineapple and jalapenos.
Oh yeah,
And
together on the same pizza.
Fantastic.
I don't like jalapenos.
I don't like pineapple.
Oh my gosh, Lisa, what?
Anything pineapple.
Oh, it's fine. I understand.
I like bacon.
I get that same way. Like, I get people judging me for not liking apple pie. So.
I love apple pie.
See?
That's I do too. But,
I can't stand apple pie. See, I get people judging me for that. So, I get it.
Is it a taste thing or a texture thing?
It's more of the baked fruit. I can't stand.
So just like
fruit.
any baked fruit.
Cooked fruit. Mush
like
fruit.
cherry pie or blueberry pie?
Mm-mm.
So it's just like all fruit pie.
Yeah, it's all fruit pie. I can't do. Nope. What's with all the stigma with NFTs?
That's a good question. I think a lot of people don't get it. A lot of people think that, like Warner said, it's just a picture. You could copy it. What's the big deal? But underlying that is that technology that we've been talking about. And maybe you could elaborate more on that, Warner.
Well, shoot, I think it's the speculation, right? And I don't like talking about cryptocurrency and the concept of financial speculation, but I'll touch on it briefly here just because it's so intrinsic to NFTs and why some people find them more controversial. It's, well, some of us might remember the tweet that was turned into an NFC that Dorsey, the founder and previous CEO of Twitter, he sold it for 2 point something million, maybe 2 points. And he gave it all to charity, right? His proceeds from that sale. And it got a lot of attention for good reason, right? Who blows a 7-figure sum on something intangible every day? Yeah. And, well, I bring this up because it really illustrates the speculation problem. That same tweet was recently sold again. That NFT tweet was sold for less than $1,000, I want to say. So it was speculative, right? What we could overanalyze what made it worth $2 million at the time, but really nothing tangible. And that value, that belief in the market, we didn't believe that value sustained. So it might be worth more later, it might be worth less, who knows? But when people are speculating, it's easy to have situations like that happen. And that's true in all goods, NFTs, gold, Beanie Babies, tulips. the speculation. But the problem, as it was defined before, applying blockchain to create scarcity with digital goods, that is real. So when we get past this speculation and start working on applying this technology to agreed upon social problems, well, that's where it becomes game changing. But we need to get past the speculative phase. I think there's no debate about the relevance of the digital world in our future. It's going to become more and more relevant. So this problem is going to remain. And where do we get with the tech? Well, that depends on how we use it.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I think there's a lot of similarities between the current NFT market and any collector's market in the real world. You know, it's this speculation of what things are worth, and then, you know, Beanie Babies back in the 90s selling for $10,000 a piece, and now they're in the trash can somewhere. You know, I just think it's going to go the same way, really. But there's some utility in. I've seen some NFTs coming out recently that have actual utility. Like, you know, there was one that was a comic book, and when you bought one and combined it with another one, somehow it became something else. And you know, there's some really cool things happening in that space that I think give more to it than just the, you know, just the speculative piece of art that you're buying kind of thing that's going on. So,
and that's the cool part, right? We can create scarce goods digitally, and within the technology we can do all sorts of neat stuff like that, and there's value.
There's also an NFT that we're working with that's creating cards for the EGC community, basically. And they're really, really amazing cards. And how cool would it be if they can make like a card trading game in the like digital world and just do something like that?
Folks spend thousands of dollars on Pokemon cards,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it kind of reminded me of Pokemon cards. It was super amazing to see them.
And we don't have anything in the plans right now, but just looking into the future, we've talked briefly about NFT, you know, clothing and things like that. But, you know, weapons in games, you know, things that give you boosts in different games, I think is also something that could fall into the NFT marketplace too. So, you know, I think there's a lot of room for this to grow into something that's more useful for sure. So we've got, just wanted to say, I've been in military labs with simulations, and these simulations are very cheesy. What do you guys plan to do with this that will be a game changer for training? And this is a fun question because what underlying technology in our platform allows us to do these massive, graphically intense simulations that aren't possible on a standalone headset. So for a military training simulation, for instance, the user can be in a VR headset, you know, multiple users can be in VR headsets and use the power of these massive cloud computers to render these expansive environments that you can't do with current technology. So you could have base A playing in a war simulation versus base B across the country with, you know, 200 people in this virtual space all training together, which is something that is not being done today. So that's kind of where we see ourselves fitting in to that space. And then obviously you know, you hit on it being cheesy, and graphically, again, we can create much more intense, realistic graphics using these high-powered servers. So,
to you, I remember Sega TV, the cable Sega.
Yeah.
It wasn't out very long. A pretty long time ago too. Really neat. It's the first version of that I can remember, where you had a cartridge you could put in a game console, and it was connected to cable, and you could play games over that cable.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Worked pretty well. It just didn't get much market traction. And I think it's so cool how you're tackling problems like that using cloud computing to make virtual reality accessible to more use cases. And that's just so exciting.
Thanks. Yeah. I was just last night. I was streaming a video game from Xbox Live, and it works great. And there's some limitations for VR that we are trying to tackle, and there's a reason why nobody's doing what we're doing, because it's not as easy as it is to do streaming for a console game. There's latency that you have to overcome. There's a lot of things that are important when you're sitting in a VR headset that aren't as important when you're looking at a TV screen. But once we tackle that, once the technology is developed completely that we're working on, it's gonna be really interesting. SafeMoon NFT is supposed to have something to deal with the turbines, says somebody. I've heard. I don't know about this SafeMoon turbine deal that you're talking about there, but I have heard that there's companies out there that are trying to sell ownership of real world things using NFTs. I don't know if you've heard of this, but there was a company that was making solar panels, I believe, and they sold the solar panels as NFTs, and you could own an NFT of the solar panel and you would get the revenue from it generating electricity in the real world. So I've heard of instances of people doing that. I think it's a way to fund a project, maybe more than anything. But
it's interesting.
Yeah,
and that's the cool things about these technologies. They're emerging and just now starting to be applied. And I mean, depending on your math, this was created in 2008 or 2009. That wasn't that long ago.
no,
We're just starting to see it adopted in more broader use cases, and there's a long way it can go from here. We didn't have our amazing pocket computers. Oh, shoot, it's been less than 20 years.
right, yeah.
When was the iPhone 3? Gee, that was probably, what, a decade ago, right?
Yeah, I remember waiting in line for it at the AT&T store. I was in college at the time, so it was shoot, that's dating me, isn't it? About almost 20 years ago, 18 years ago, I think.
So now we have effectively supercomputers by that standard in our pockets now. So if it's easy to take for granted the moment we're in, but if we consider the fact that technology is still evolving exponentially and we have convergence over different disciplines, the things we'll see 10 years and 20 years from now will be amazing.
Exactly. Yeah, with machine learning and AI technologies and everything coming together, it's going to be a very interesting future.
There's a book called The Future is Faster Than You Think, and it's all about technology convergence. It's really interesting.
And we're a part of that now.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing to think about.
Right.
So true.
Well, and it's weird because this all started because of the pandemic for us.
Mm-hmm.
We were a brick and mortar VR arcade, and the pandemic hit and we had no way of bringing in revenue because nobody could come to the store. So I looked for alternative ways to get people to experience our VR arcade and found that I could potentially let people stream it to their headsets at home. So we started doing that, and then realized after restrictions started being lifted that there's still an audience that would like to do that even after the pandemic. So we kept it going, kept developing, started looking into AWS as a solution to expand this outside of Chillicothe, Ohio. And it's all just kind of snowballed from there. And obviously, Rev 1 sees the potential in what we're offering and all of the things that are coming together. NVIDIA now has excitement behind our project, and it's just really crazy to see where we've kind of stumbled onto this technology that could have a real impact on the future of cloud computing.
Mm-hmm.
So very, very exciting. And it's moved so fast, you know. We've been slowly kind of messing around kind of in the background here for about a year, but within the last 3 months, it's just kind of ramped up 100%. You know, we've got
For sure.
new employees starting soon. We've got, you know, talking to lawyers 3 times a week. It's interesting.
Yeah, the entrepreneurial journey is always a game in itself. It's great when the market's pulling you along. It's when you know you found something.
Exactly, because I've been through this before a few times. I've actually been to Rev 1 2 years ago with a different project, and it didn't have this same feeling. It wasn't the same momentum that we have this time. It's like you said, it's like the industry is just pulling us along now, and it's really awesome. Yeah. Well, I think that wraps up all our questions. Warner, thank you for joining us tonight, and you had some great responses to the questions that everyone asked, and you've been awesome to bounce ideas off of and talk to in the past, and I can't thank you enough, and look forward to continuing our relationship and hopefully talking to you again soon.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me, Colin, Francis, Alyssa. It's been awesome hanging out with all of you as well.
Awesome. All right, see you guys. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.